Senator Minchin. Senator Minchin.
Thanks very much, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Broadband, Communications and the Digital Economy, Senator Conroy. I refer the Minister to the outrage sparked in the early 1990s when aerial pay television cables were rolled out under the federal Labor government despite the objections of residents and councils, and the subsequent safeguards introduced by the coalition requiring carriers to seek state and local planning approval before deploying overhead cables. When does the government plan to attempt to repeal these safeguards in order to enable aerial cables to be rolled out for the $43 billion national broadband network, thus denying the opportunity for residents and individual councils to object?
The Minister for Broadband, Communications and the Digital Economy, Senator Conroy.
Thank you, Mr President. And I thank Senator Minchin for his ongoing interest in his own portfolio. In relation to this issue, the government wants to expedite the roll out of fibre optic component of the NBN because it will deliver substantial benefits to homes and businesses. That said, the government will take account of community sensitivities in making changes to carrier powers and immunities. The faster fibre optic can be rolled out, the sooner Australians can enjoy the benefits of superfast broadband, unlike those opposite who, after 12 years and now 18 months in opposition, we have a broadband plan. You have a plan to hold. You have a plan to hold a study. You have a plan to hold a study.
Senator Conroy, resume your seat. Resume your seat. Senator Conroy.
Thank you. You have a plan to hold a study. You have a plan to invite the Productivity Commission to investigate. Let's be clear about this. The government wants to roll out.
Order. Senator Conroy.
Thank you. The government wants the rollout to be as unobtrusive as possible. Where possible and cost-effective, fibre optics can and will be placed underground. In other instances, aerial cabling may be faster and more cost-effective. Where necessary, to facilitate the rollout of fibre optic, the government is prepared to amend existing carrier powers and immunities. The government will consult stakeholders on legislative changes and will give due consideration to community sensitivities. The government has begun discussions with the Australian Local Government Association about the NBN and looks forward to an ongoing constructive dialogue. Any changes
Senator
to
Conroy,
the law—
your time has expired. Senator Minchin.
Thanks, Mr President. I thank the Minister for the answer, but I note that in Tasmania the state government has indicated that overhead cables will comprise about 70% of that state's broadband rollout. Can the Minister indicate what proportion of the optical fibre rollout on mainland Australia will comprise aerial cable?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. The government will be looking at ways the impact of any aerial cabling can be minimised. And I note comments, given that Senator Minchin has referred to Tasmania, I note comments from Dr Jonathan Spring, who was involved in the FTTP pilot in Tasmania with Tascolt, who said on the 3rd of June 2009, in the Tascolt project, we rolled it out as an aerial cable deployment. It's a very attractive way of doing it in comparison to the way cable TV was laid out, because the fibre cable is very much smaller than the existing cable that people might be aware of from Optus and Telstra. So let's be clear. Senator Minchin is attempting to hug a piece of HFC cable, and he's desperate to have a debate about cable the size of HFC. Perhaps if he went and got a briefing, he would begin to understand that in actual fact what is available today for the fibre optic rollout is considerably—
Your time has expired. Senator Minchin.
I wonder if the Minister was so dismissive of the Foreign Minister when he raised this issue in the one meeting that the Cabinet had on this matter. But I asked the Minister what assumption was made regarding the degree to which aerial cabling would be used in relation to the government's cost estimate of $43 billion for its NBN Mark II. And does the Minister agree with Optus that the estimated costs of the project, that is $43 billion, will mean at least 70% aerial deployment nationwide.
The Minister.
Thank you. Senator Mitch is actually misquoting Optus. I think they were indicating for a 70% rollout it was $33 billion out of, and depending on the level of the rollout, I think that if you read it carefully, I think that's what they were actually saying. I'm happy to be contradicted. But let me be clear. We have said we're having an implementation study to go through all of these issues. We've said that from day one, and we don't resolve from that. We are in negotiations. We are in negotiations. We are in negotiations which will allow us to be definitive on that. Depending on whether one company or another company is involved, will change this equation. So, Senator Minchin, instead of just sitting back and calling for more studies, why don't you actually get behind giving Australians faster broadband? Why don't you just do that? Or, as Mr Kim Williams from Foxtel said today,
Your
most
time
of the
has
negative commentary on
expired, Senator Conroy. Your time has expired. Senator Siewert.